Y'all enjoy the hives outside? Now, those are some of the easiest ones you'll get into, all right? Some of the pictures that you'll see here in a little bit are more complex, and one of the biggest issues you'll run into is you'll get a phone call from somebody, they're like, oh, we want to save the bees. Well, the very first thing you should be thinking in the back of your head, okay, well, they want to save them, but what did they think an hour ago when they were spraying them with wasp and hornet spray? Okay? Because I guarantee you something has happened to those bees before you get there. I am almost never find a hive that has not been sprayed, molested with some type of chemical, thrown rocks at, just a little bit of everything you can imagine people do to bees. And they want to save them. They don't want to hurt them because why? Bees are going extinct. I don't know where they get this. Anyways, I've been doing bees for over 30 years. I actually was born in a bee yard. Been doing it my whole life. I don't do it the way normal beekeepers would do it. I manipulate the bees to do what I want them to do with their natural instincts, i.e. what we did out there. We shake the bees off from the comb. We basically are inducing that hive into a swarm pattern. Why would we do that? One, for safety of the public. Once they don't have that brood, they're not as apt to defend anymore with no young brood there. So we're making them into a swarm. So about, I don't know, I was about 12, 13, somewhere around there. By the way, I'm 42 now, right? I don't know, 24, right? Okay. Anyways, when I was 12 or 13, one of the guys in my church kept bees, and he was 96 years old. His name was Pearl Riddle. Now, my wife wanted me to tell you the story out there, but I got sidetracked. Pearl Riddle was 96 years old when he asked my folks if he could take me aside and teach me everything he knew about bees. Now, think about this. I was not quite as big as I am now, probably, but Pearl Riddle stood about this tall, weighed about 87 pounds on his heavy day, and walked probably slower than most ants could walk across this room. I mean, very slow, very deliberate, everything he did. His wife ran a grocery store out of the front of their house. So she'd sell honey, he'd go back to the hive, take a frame of honey out of the top, and literally every single bee he would walk off from the frame. He wouldn't use a brush, he wouldn't use smoke, never put a bee veil on. He wanted to teach me how to do that. So that's where I learned. About 8 years working with him, and then, well, somewhere in the middle of that, he passed away. And I took over his stuff, and then I decided to get out of beekeeping and try and teach high school science. Well, here I am back in bees. I got my first degree in horticulture, went on for environmental management with a minor in secondary education to teach high school. I was at Ohio State ATI for about a month, and as one of my work study programs, I was working at an auction that was owned by the Amish. Well, one of the Amish elders found out that I knew how to take bees out of buildings and save them, and they wanted me to teach their kids how to do it. So by the time I was done with my first year of college, we were back up to 200 hives and about 16 Amish kids that were anywhere from 7 years old to 18. And all of them wanted to keep bees for their whole life. So that's what they did. They retooled one of their furniture factory areas to making bee equipment, and they were making bee equipment as fast as we could put bees in them. And then they started selling them. So that's a whole new thriving business for their community there. So, I don't know where we are. Okay, I'm the past vice chair to the Florida State Farm Bureau for bees. That means that anytime that Florida Farm Bureau needed to speak to, say, Congress or anybody else about what's going on with bees, I was one of the people that was called in to do that. That's also the same time that I was also the Florida State Beekeepers President, which That was recent. Did a story with New York Times. Back when the economy started to take its downturn, we started getting a lot of vacant homes. That's when the industry in bee removal really picked up, because there was a lot of houses and nobody was taking care of them. The neighbors were having problems. That's when New York Times decided, hey, we need to do a story on this. They followed me around for about 3 weeks. Now let me tell you, they watch every single thing you do. They watch where you put your hive tool, they watch what you're doing with the comb, how you're entering houses, what you're doing getting in and out of buildings, everything. Very meticulous. They videotape the whole thing, they're writing down books, notes, the whole 9 yards. Great guys. So we did that. Then later on we did the Swamp Men series. Anybody watch Swamp Men? Over here, Billy's, what was that? Billy's Swamp Safari. All right, so down here in Miami, they're actually still following me, doing a biography of me, I guess. I don't know. With their film and media department there. One of the professors has been working on that. So they're still following us today. They pop in every now and then.
For like 8 years they've been.
Yeah, so it's a long project they're working on. So we did a Curious Kids TV show. Everybody here loves working with kids, right? Come on, everybody loves working with kids. What about little kids, 7 years old, out in the bee yard? By the way, I have a 7-year-old girl over by where we are that's in 4-H this last year. She had never touched bees before, never been stung. She came into the bee yard because we were doing a 4-H project for them. And she came over and said, I want to work the bees by myself. I don't want you to touch them, I want to do everything. I looked to her folks and I said, is it okay? Her mom's like, let her do it. She actually went through a whole hive, had 3 supers of honey on it, the brood box, pulled out. She found the queen, identified the drones, identified the stages of brood. 7 years old. Pretty smart kid. They'll surprise you.
He's ready to adopt.
Yeah, let me tell you. So, Ohio High Point's where I went to a vocational school there. They did, I don't know, they said I was some kind of success, I don't know. Anyways, next one. So if y'all have any questions, please raise your hand. Well, this is kind of where we're coming from here in Florida. A few years ago, y'all will remember the state of Florida said, wait a second, beekeepers can't do removals. And I'm sitting back saying, wait a second, I have friends all over the states. In fact, I have friends all over the world that do live bee removal. And beekeepers were the first people to do it. Why should pest control be the only people to do bee removal? Exactly. We need the bees. Our best genetics is where? Out there in the woods. Not in our boxes. That's not necessarily our best genetics. That's what we put there. So all the genetic variation is out there. So the hunter-gatherers knew that. So they were out collecting wild honey from trees, rock ledges, in-ground hives. So then they started keeping them in log gums. Everybody know what a log gum is? It's not legal to keep them in Florida, although there are quite a few here in Florida still. It's actually one of the ways that beekeepers kept bees here all the way back before the Civil War, here in Florida. And actually, my wife Melissa's ancestors kept them that way.
I need
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt really quick, I'm sorry. There's a Mazda CX-7 gray blocking somebody's car outside. Does it belong to anyone here? Mazda CX-7. Okay.
So, here in Florida, we kept them that way. Well, that was before, if you go all the way down to the bottom, we should have brought one. Has anybody had the chance to work a bee skep? Everybody knows what a bee skep is? Oh my goodness, bee skep. Ow, what's going on here?
We don't use them on this side of the
Oh,
stand.
Exactly. That's why we can't use them, because they're not easy to inspect them. You can't pull a frame out. The state requires us to have a frame that's removable to be inspected. Well, most of the time when you're working with skeps, which is a woven basket basically of grass, reeds, sometimes even vines, those colonies normally were shaken out or killed in the process of collecting the honey. So it's really not a good way to do it. You can do it that way. We've actually got some, but anyways, so next one.
Hang on, I was gonna try to find a picture of a sketch for him.
So basically it's a flower pot, which I know Al's got a few. I've seen his pictures.
I'm gonna pull up a picture.
We get a lot of them. Lowe's, Home Depot call us in to take care of their flower pots in their garden center because they stack them all perfectly and they're all that nice cavity for the bees to build into. We get them like that all the time. Beautiful hives. So here in Florida, we have to keep removable frames. Now that leaves you a lot of leeway. Can I make that swarm collection box a removable frame box just by dropping frames in it? I can take a garbage can, make makeshift frames and slide in it and work them. You can do any of those. I have people right now that have frames that are that wide by that deep. Now, if you like your back, you won't do that because they're heavy. The bees don't necessarily like to do it because it takes a lot more energy for them to work that whole frame and then work them out from there. So you can do it. It's a long box. There's a whole bunch of those that were used in the past. We don't use them because they're a lot more labor intensive. Anyway, while we're working on that, the Africanized bees genetics. Now, everybody here has seen an Africanized bee, right? Anybody here not know what an Africanized bee is? Beautiful. First group I've ever had that didn't know what an Africanized bee is. Do they sting hotter? Can you visually tell? Okay. Actually today I got a phone call. Lady calls me up. She went into this office, and I won't say what type of office, and they looked at one single bee that she had in a Ziploc baggie and said, yep, those are certified Africanized bees. They certified them. Okay? Now, they're in the base of a step next to a mobile home, concrete step. We get them all the time. You just pry them out, reach in, pull them all out. 20-minute job tops. Well, she's had 3 different pest control companies there spray them. She went to Home Depot. Home Depot told her, oh, just take this expanding foam, stick it in the crevice, fill it up, they'll be done. A couple big problems with all that because they find a new place to escape or they chew through the foam. So Africanized bees are known for their swarming behavior. That means that they want to build more bees to make a new hive somewhere else to keep moving. That's because in Africa, one of their defense mechanisms is to keep moving every time something tears into their hive. So they keep surviving. Here we don't have that need. So they make these little tiny swarms. We'll find swarms, actually, I found them the size of this cup. We go out and we're like, okay, well, what do you do with them? How many of those cups does it take to make a full-size hive? So we end up popping a lot of queen's heads and dumping them in the yard and just letting them join the rest. Because the genetics is with the queen and the drones, and if you're catching all your queens and drones, you don't have to worry about the Africanized worker bee. Now, I have seen our Africanized bees here work at night, full moon night, which means we now have the ability to do night pollination with some of the cactuses and stuff that our bees normally don't go into. Opens up a whole nother variety of honey, different types of flavors. So, may not be that bad. Well, so that's one of the reasons we get so many of these calls out here. We're getting more and more all the time. It's not the only reason. We've also got all these parasites that move in, destroy the hive, damage them. Think about what happens when a least hive beetle moves into your hive. First thing it does is it looks for the queen, gets some of the queen pheromones on their body. Now they're the queen, right? They're giving off the queen pheromones. They can move anywhere in that hive they want, do anything they want. Well, the bees now say, wait a second, we got more than one queen in here. So what do? They either make more queens to swarm or they swarm. So now we've got multiple hives, multiple swarms going on. Your hive weakens, collapses, they swarm off and abscond. That's where you get your weakening, collapse, because what? Now you have weak bees that the varroa mite gets into, injects all these viruses into, causes problems with your virus load on your bees as well. Well, then here comes along that homeowner that has no idea that they're saving the bees by spraying wasp and hornet spray on them. Or the garden hose. Oh, I've read it online. You just take garden hose and some ammonia, and the bees will just leave their hive and go somewhere else. I've got those calls.
What about muriatic acid?
Oh my goodness.
In your shop vac, reversed, so you throw it in the wall. That was one of my first
Yeah. I got a phone call. Actually, it was the fire department called me up because the fumes in the house were so bad that the people's eyes were burning. They'd taken muriatic acid from the battery, dumped it in to their shop vac and blew it into the wall. Well, what does that do eventually? Eats your concrete. So now you got concrete problems. Your bees, which are sick, dying, they're a mess, and you can't live in the house for a while till it airs out. That's not the worst. Recently, well, shouldn't say recently, it's been a year now, had a guy decided to chase the bees away. Got online, said, oh, well, you just take some ammonia and you throw on the wall, and that will chase your bees out. I don't know who put that on there, but somebody needs to find it and get rid of it, because it happens quite regularly. Chlorine from a swimming pool, I get people throwing that at them all the time. So, all these things have caused problems. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the new rule. Remember we had only pest control companies could deal with bees? Well, we went back to the state and said, wait a second, you guys can't do this. This is a viable industry. We've been here for hundreds of years. You can't do this. Well, we took it to Tallahassee and finally got it through. They changed the rule, which is what allows you to go out and collect bees now. They didn't want us to collect bees because they were afraid we were going to put Africanized bees into our boxes. None of you would do that, right? You don't want aggressive bees because you want to be able to go out and do what we just did right there and work our bees with no veil, no suit, no gloves, right? So we got them to change the rule, which means basically they changed a few words in it to allow beekeepers to do it. Pest control can still go out and kill them, which I don't agree with. I have severe problems with them spraying because pest control has no guidelines. There's no rules for them when it comes to killing a beehive. They can use any chemical in their truck. They don't have to, by law, remove any of the comb. They don't have to remove any of that honey that your box can go and rob out of that wall or that location that they just sprayed. So now we have cross-contamination to our hives. So that's where I have issues with it.
It's something we all have to fight, really.
Right.
We have to get together and figure
All right.
out what happening.
So we have this new rule. It allows you to use things like BeeGo, honey robber, things to repel bees, meaning if you got them in a wall, you want to chase them out, you can mechanically do that with a bee escape, a cone, something like that, or BeeGo, a chemical to chase them out, as long as you are doing it for your own bee yard. You're collecting bees for yourself. You're not collecting bees to sell to somebody else. You're not collecting bees to take them out in the woods and throw them out in the woods. That's not beekeeping, according to the state. So, you want to flip,
Do you want to go into specifics, or are you just touching on that?
just flip them real quick. So, now we have this rule that allows you to do it with certain guidelines. There's even a place that you can register in the state with Jeanette Choplin.
You don't see
Yeah, Klopshin, there we go. She is now in charge of it. Her new position is basically to protect bees in Florida and other pollinators. All right, she's in charge of this rule chapter here, actually. If there's an issue with pest control spraying over an area, and you go out and you see all your bees laying dead on the ground, she should be your second call, if your inspector doesn't call her directly. Because what will happen is you'll call your inspector will call her and Tallahassee. Tallahassee will send out an investigator to collect a sample of those bees. They'll do a spectral analysis of them to find out what kind of chemical. And by the way, all this has to be done within the first day, within 24 hours of those bees dying. Because once it's past that 24 hours, they can't do anything. It's out of their hands.
the half-life of the pesticides are already starting
Right.
to evaporate.
So, you can flip. Already covered that. So now we're allowed to keep the bees. This is when we adopted the rule. This rule might actually change. And this is why all of you need to be aware of it, because it could easily change back the way it was before. I don't want to see that, partly because it's that's my livelihood, but because my belief is the beekeeper should be the one out there taking care of those bees, not a pest control spraying and more chemicals that cause us more problems. So, yep.
Is that accurate? It says define bees as a pest. Does it mean define bees not as a pest?
Bees, depends if they're in somebody's structure, they are a pest to that homeowner. But if you're a beekeeper, you're removing them as a bee, okay? That little wordage there, and the fact that they have a law that allows for unwanted races of bees in Florida, allows pest control to take care of bees,
Yeah, I put it back free.
okay? Now, this part right here, this whereas non-pesticidal means to control bees, if you have soapy water on your truck, that is considered a pest control. That is a pesticide chemical. So, the only thing you can use soapy water on is to clean up your tools, equipment, area, wherever you might spill some honey and stuff at the house. That's it. So, you can use glue boards, pheromones, swarm catch, lemongrass oil works really well. Leave a swarm box in the area wherever you take them away, because more than likely you're going to get another one there very soon. Yep. Okay, here's another part of it. They were very, very adamant about this. You must be a registered beekeeper in the state of Florida. Now, state of Florida, if you're a transient resident, where you only live here part of the year, and you have a registration in another state, it doesn't apply. You have to be registered in the state of Florida.
Is it for 1 year?
It's every year.
Do you have to be a registered beekeeper for 1 year before you can do removal?
Not at this point. Unfortunately.
So only registered?
Only registered. Literally,
At one point, didn't they have it as 1 year?
we were trying to get it as that. So you had at least 1 year's experience, but that got written out. So there's a lot of things. Let me tell you, in the process of getting this so you can do this, there were many drafts. There were many arguments back and forth between pest control and us, and between us and the state of Florida, back and forth. This took a long time to get it done. And the guy that actually helped us get it through is no longer with the state. So he's since retired and moved on. So,
We didn't want people taking a course if, like, a
Right.
week and, you know, going out and
I
trying.
didn't want people that, like you guys that just watched that, and then tomorrow you start up a business doing live bee removal. Because that's one little tiny portion of what it really takes. Want to flip on? Okay, we'll flip through these real quick. If you guys want this information, just send us a note, we'll get it to you. Okay? Live removal bees from structures. Okay? You got to remember, you're taking an insect out of somebody's house. You may be doing damage to their house more than that bee would ever do to their house. I.e., I've had somebody go up to the top of a high rise, took a hammer drill, drilled through the side of the high rise, right through a tensioning cable, the top of the high rise. When they cut through those, it's like a stick of dynamite, and all the concrete all the way around that building cracks and pops. Now you have a serious problem with the structural integrity of that building, and you got everybody involved, not just you as the beekeeper. You don't want to do that. I had to go back in and take care of the bees for them in that situation. So that's just one. Yeah,
And there's Jeanette's
it's
information.
Jeanette's. If you want this, it's on the Florida State Beekeepers website as well,
And Fresh from Florida.
and Fresh from Florida and ours, which I think our website's down right the minute. So,
It's being revamped.
yeah, we're adding all kinds of other stuff to it.
Anything?
Any questions about this yet? Come on, I know you guys got questions. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Go on to the next. Yeah, go on. Should be going on. Keep going all the way through these. This is back. Okay. This is one thing. We live in a sue-happy state, or world, if you want to say. Friends of mine from all over the planet have had issues with people getting stung while you're doing a bee job. Are you liable for somebody that rides their bike through the area, gets stung, crashes, somebody drives over them with a car? Happens. Actually did happen. Get insurance. Liability insurance is the best thing you could have. All right? That's why we put it number one. $1 million minimum. Because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to say $1 million, that's nothing. Somebody's life. Who knows? Workers' compensation. You can now get workers' compensation for doing what we do, beekeeping, bee removal, any aspect of the beekeeping industry, you can now get it. 2 years ago, it didn't exist. So if that tells you how new this industry is. Local business licenses. By the way, is bee removal free? Okay, we got to get that across to everybody out there, because myself, we spend about $50,000 a year just in fuel in my truck.
And this person,
Okay, that's just my truck.
47.
Okay, so you start adding all this stuff up. Your insurance, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year. Your vehicle, commercial, by the way. You're not a residential, private car insurance now, so you might as well just triple that price or whatever you're paying. In every single town that you go into, including the state of Florida, you have to have a business license, not just your business registration as a beekeeper. You have to have a business license with the state of Florida, business tax. Then every single city that you work in, every town will say, oh, well, we need, you need to be registered in the city to do bee removal work within the city limits. So that's another $50. So it starts adding up. Then you got your equipment. Thank you.
He doesn't yell this much normally.
So,
That's him yelling.
well, you have all that stuff you're paying for, your equipment, your caution tape, your signs to let people know, hey, we're taking part bees. Whether they're gentle or not, you still need to let the people around you know. Because what if you get into an Africanized hive? Or a hive that somebody's already tried to spray that acts like an Africanized hive now? Okay? Not all Africanized bees are really Africanized bees.
What about parking the lawnmower on top of the water meter and letting it go for a while? That's some work.
Okay? So people piss bees off. Now they're Africanized. Okay? So you've got to deal with all the other people. Now, when we're doing that right there next to the beehive, they're not messing with us as much. But in a true Africanized hive, people out in the parking lot over there a block away are getting stung. They may not even sting you right at the hive. So you've got to be careful of that. Current beekeeper's registration. I guarantee you every single business that you go into their property will request that. Your insurance card, your liability. They're going to want all that information before you do anything, hopefully. Some of them come back around behind after everything's said and done and say, oh, by the way, we need all this information.
Or we're not gonna send you your check.
Or we're not going to pay you. So, knowledge of construction demolition. If you don't have it, make sure that you got somebody with you that knows construction, knows what people will do when they build things that are not permitted and not necessarily built to code, because you will be the one dealing with that issue. Every time that somebody goes in there and says, oh, we want to add on this little room for a TV, but oh, it's just a wall. We can just knock this wall out and push it out and build a little box here for our TV. Well, then we drill a hole through the wall, and the next person moves in. Well, we don't know what to do with this room, so we just put a board over it. Well, then you got this perfect little hole into a nice cavity the bees move right into. And then you're in there tearing it all apart to get the bees out. So, public notification, first aid. Carry a first aid kit with you, because I can't tell you how many times I've cut myself, stepped on nails, fallen off from roofs, fallen off from ladders, fallen through ceilings. Just anything you can imagine. You're going to get hurt, you're going to get burned, you're going to get cut. So carry a first aid kit. Then the last one, and this one here we kind of, me and the state has a disagreement on right now, and that's why I was saying watch it, because this whole thing can possibly change very quick. Pest control emergency contact or an ID card with a company. When we did all this, they took us aside and said, okay, you're working with a pest control company, they should give you an ID card, so now you're an ID carrier with them, doing work with them. You need to be registered with them. We did that. Well, this year, after the guy that helped us through with all this left, they come back and said, wait a second, you're not a full-time employee of the pest control company, you can't have an ID card. So then they came back and cited the pest control company for us having ID cards. Okay? So, with the state of Florida, anything can change overnight. One person moves from one department to another, it's a brand new slate. They don't have history, memory of what that last person did. So, that's an issue right now. We'll go on to the next.
We'll just carry a card with your name on it.
Oh, gee, thanks.
That's happening.
Trust me. Actually, that's another thing. How many of you out there got my card or didn't? Okay. Believe it or not, I actually have impersonators out there. Why would you want to impersonate me? I'm not that nice of a guy, really, am I? What they're doing is they go out and they do bee jobs, and they say, oh, well, this is who I am, but you got to pay me cash. Wait a second. I take credit cards, checks. Seldom, if ever, do I accept cash because of that. For one thing, this other guy does the job, messes it up, causes structural damage or something. Now they're pointing at me and saying, oh, this guy here did it. But I don't have any records of them. And that's another reason. State of Florida wanted us to report to them, which is not part of this. We got that out, thank goodness. Every 72 hours, if you did a bee removal this morning, you had 72 hours to get all the information to them in Tallahassee. That means what kind of building it was, picture of it, what you used on the hive, what time of day, how many bees were there, if anybody else had tried to spray them. I mean, there was 4 pages. Every single one. Well, if I do 16 removals a day, how much paperwork time am I doing? It just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense. I couldn't do it. So your beekeeping tools are really mostly all that you're going to need. The rare case, you're going to need jackhammers, concrete saws, crowbars, pry bars, dynamite, flamethrowers. No, I'm just joking. Okay. High lift. Let me tell you, most of these open air hives we find are between 25 and 35 foot. Most of them. Doesn't mean they all are. I do an awful lot of jobs that are 7, 8 floors up, sometimes more. I have one hive rise that we actually right now have 5 hives sitting on top of to collect bees. I just took bees off from their roof last week. In the last 2 years, that exact same roof, I've taken 7 hives off from out of the roof of that building, not including the swarms that I collect. And those are some of the strongest bees I've got. So, it says something for putting bees up on the roof. Yes. We run, I have a 35-foot cherry picker that we use. I actually work with another guy that owns it that does landscaping. So we use it together back and forth. It's definitely worth having because ladders, let me tell you, you get up there in a soffit, you start cutting honey. Honey's running down your arms, running down the ladder. Your feet are slimy and sticky from the honey, the ladder's sticky, and down you go. I've fallen off a 2nd floor roof onto a shopping cart. It does not feel good for a few days.
At least you lived.
Yeah, okay. I went through, everybody knows what areca palms are. I've fallen through a pile of areca palms. It's not fun. I've been bruised all over the place doing it. I was actually up on top of a tile roof, and right in our area we had Hurricane Charlie went through. And they were throwing roofs up really fast. Well, they weren't really being inspected like they should have. And this particular roof had one nail like every 5 or 6 tiles. I didn't know that. So I went up on top of the roof, and as soon as I put my weight on the side, the whole side went, and me with it. So thank goodness there wasn't too much but bushes below me and wasn't too far. So it happens, all right? So basically any tool you can think of you're going to use. Sawzalls a lot, chainsaws, cut branches, pruners. Always carry a set of hand pruners with you. Contracts. There's a big one. Do you use contracts? Everything you do on somebody's property, they can turn right back around and sue you. If you take a credit card from somebody, I probably shouldn't be telling everybody this. Get a customer, gives you a credit card. You deposit it. 6 months later, the customer's like, well, I got a new swarm of bees. You didn't do your job. Charge it back. Well, you didn't have a contract. They didn't sign anything stating that, hey, you know, once you leave, that's it. So they can do that, and they get their money back, and there's no questions. Most of the time, credit card company don't even give you their information to find out who it was.
Swear that did that.
Yeah.
Swear.
Okay?
Charged us without.
Right. Reverse charges. Because another swarm moved into their soffit 6 months later. So, contracts definitely. That's to save yourself. An attorney. There's always a reason to have an attorney somewhere in the background because they'll get you out of a sticky situation that you don't want to be in. And that goes back to doing demolition of somebody's house, destroying something. Think about this. This was actually a pest control company that did it. Stilt house. In the floor between the ground and the first floor, there's a cavity about like this. It goes from one side of the house to the other. Bees moved in. Well, pest control came in. They pumped about 25 gallons of liquid into there to kill them. I'm saying 25 gallons because that's how much we scooped up off from the floor after the whole mess was over. Well, the bees moved to the other side of the house, started working out there. Well, then the pest control company didn't come back. They said, oh, we killed the bees. There couldn't be any there. So they didn't come back. The customer was pissed off. They ended up getting a hold of my number through somebody at the state. I came out there. Between the time pest control being there and me getting there, the ceiling fell in. Well, it just so happens to be there was a baby grand piano downstairs, and it was a very expensive baby grand piano. It was played by some composer and was worth over $1 million. So that ended up going into litigation, and that was a mess for about 4 years. So you get pulled into that kind of stuff. Even though you didn't do anything, because I went there, it took me 20 minutes. Cut a little hole about this big in the drywall, pulled the bees out, shook them into a box, set them outside, come back that night, I was done. So definitely want to have an attorney if at all possible. Preferably one that keeps bees. That's a great thing to have, because then they have a knowledge of what goes on in the bees world. The contractor, okay? Last thing on there, you'll always get these people that say, hey, you tore apart my house, can you fix it? Or do you know somebody that can? It's always good to have his card in your back pocket and say, here. But make sure that that person knows what they do, knows exactly how to fix stuff, and fix it the way you would fix it to keep bees out of their house. A lot of times they'll fix it and the bees will get right back in, and then you're back doing the job all over again. So now we get to the fun part, the pictures. Water meters and valve boxes. Everybody has a water meter or valve box of some type on their property. How many are there in this county? Lots. And every single one is the volume inside that meter box is about the same as equivalent of a 5-gallon bucket, which is perfect for a beehive. That's what they look for. So, notice how I'm dressed. Pretty much the way I am here. T-shirt, shorts, no gloves. And by the way, this year, not all, but most of the jobs I've done, I don't even light my smoker. But they're water meters.
Except the coughing job.
Yeah, I did a coffin last week. That was a little, I'll get to that in a minute. Notice I'm giving a little bit of smoke. This is what the water meter looked like. This is a concrete meter. We have a lot of those in our area. They're shifting those all over now to satellite read plastic meters that have a nice perfect hole in the top about that big, which why? It just don't make any sense, but anyways, so I walk up to the bees like this, give them a little bit of smoke just to move them away so I can pull that lid off. Yeah, well, this is what I was wearing about a minute and a half later. Yeah, she was in the truck, thank goodness. She's a smart one, by the way. See this 5-gallon bucket? All of that came out of that meter. All right. Now, in our area, until they put in these new satellite meters, they read physically. Somebody comes out and opens that lid and reads it every 30 days. So, not no more, yeah. Okay. Those bees were very hot. We still put them in a box, still worked them. They worked out great for us.
We saved them all.
Yeah, doesn't really matter to me what the genetics is, what the history of the bee is. We can change their genetics. It's not hard to do.
And when the bee inspectors don't wanna even deal with them, they still gotta keep.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just
Yeah, if you guys get one that nobody wants to mess with, you've got my number. Those are my fun jobs. I actually relish the times that I get to do those because I know that my skills and everything of me gets into those. Because if everybody else is getting stung so many times, they get sick and physically vomiting, and yeah, you get chills and your stomach crunches up from getting stung so many times. Those are the ones I like to get into. They're a challenge. They're a challenge, really. For me, it's a challenge. Most of these other hives,
For him,
a few hundred,
yeah,
a few hundred. You know,
I've seen him get
we did, I got 900 stings doing one show. We did a reenactment. And in that one, I got 800 or 900 stings.
They reenacted a stinging incident for BBC, and they kept wanting him to go in it to film and to get the filming right, and they got him stung up so many times
Yeah.
he was actually getting sick from it.
Yeah, when you start getting chills and your whole body is shaking like this uncontrollably, your vision starts getting, yeah, you've had enough. Time to get out. Time to go get in a cold bath.
He spent like the rest of the night
Well,
in the deep freeze.
yeah.
Went in and out of the deep freeze.
You go in, you chill yourself down because what happens is your body heats up and you got to chill yourself back down. Otherwise, you could go into adrenal failure real quick. And that's, for myself, that would be the biggest problem. Frame walls. This is most common. Go ahead and flip to the pictures of it. See what's in the wall? So if you're in there with a sawzall cutting through somebody's wire, and by the way, this is the build out. This is actually the build out for the TV I was talking about a little while ago. Notice where they put the wires? Yeah. Happens all the time. So, okay, flip on to the next. All right, this is a trap out of a block wall. Do you necessarily need to bust the block wall apart? No. There's many ways to do it. There's a lot of people out here that have concrete saws or sledgehammers and just, I mean, they create a mess. It's just a mess. Because what happens when you take a sledgehammer to a block wall and all the bees and honey and everything is on the other side of that block? You drum them. You physically drum the bees. It's like putting your head inside of a room in here and hitting a big gong drum. Your head's sitting there shaking, you're disorientated, you're sick. Most of the time they're going to die. So why bust a block wall out? You can drill in a hole, just like right here. The bees were actually going in around the box. Drilled a hole in here, put a bee escape on it. Now, that's day one. See the nook down below? This is day two. I just think now the people are peering around the side of their house and saying, how much more is in the wall?
It takes a lot of advance notification when you do these jobs.
Now-
We let them know step by step what's gonna happen.
Now, before I got to this point, I'd already gone inside the house and with a fine-tooth comb went over that entire wall. I mean, the entire wall. Doesn't know how many rooms in between every single wall that those bees could have creeped through to go to another place. Because what happens when you seal off their entrance? They'll find another one. And inevitably, it will be inside their bedroom while they're inside sleeping. And oh, by the way, pest control company they call up says, oh, they'll come in the night and kill you while you're sleeping. They do it. So, seal the inside very, very well. If you think that you could put the tip of a pencil into it, seal it. Because they'll get in there and they'll chew their way till they can get their head through. And once they get their head through, they can squeeze one through, and then they'll just make it bigger and bigger and bigger until they all come through. So, now we're to swarms. Well, that was a quick jump, wasn't it? Anyways, so we got that sealed. That was the first bunch of bees that you saw on the wall.
This is A4?
You want me to go back?
No,
That's A4?
well, no.
Instead of going in your box?
This was 24 hours later. I came back to check on it, see what they were doing. They were coming out. I shook those down into the box. I took as many back with me as I could. Now that's enough bees to start up a new nook. Drop a new queen, frame a brood in, now you got another hive. I did that 6 times on that wall. So how much stuff's inside that wall? Well, if you keep doing that, eventually the queen will come out, or the beetles will take over and turn it all to slime and run down. And by the way, if you get to that point and the beetles have taken over, they're either going to find their way inside the house as little maggots, and they're going to be calling you up and saying, oh, the bee larvae are crawling all over my floor. Or you go to the outside wall and you drill some what we call weep holes in the bottom, which are real small holes that lets that honey and ooze and beetle larvae drain outside. Make sure it goes outside. Okay? You don't want people calling you up saying, oh, we got maggots crawling throughout our whole house. Happens. So, that...
Typically the trap hours, they consume all that honey and all that brood hatches out
Typically, that's what you want to do. This is not a quick process. And you have to be very careful because you're not there the whole time, and kids coming through and they see them and, oh, we want to throw balls or tennis, whatever at them, cause a problem. So this is one of the ways to do it. You can cut out the block. It's not really worth it. What you can do after this, once you get most of the bees out, if you're in a what we call a Darth or a robbing situation, you take all of their bees away, you go back, you take that trap off, you open up the hole just a little bit, you take a strong box of bees, set it right next to it, because they're hungry. They're strong. They want to rob anything in the area. Anything sweet, they're out looking for. Set that box there. They'll actually go in the wall, rob all the honey and everything out of the wall, bring it back, put it in their box. Okay? But you got to be careful, because if it's not during the robbing season, they won't do that. So, yep, we can move on to swarms.
Sorry.
We got a swarm out in the tree, right? We got another one up above. Everybody saw them? One was pointed, one was rounded. Queen or queenless? Africanized or European? Well, if you're the person on the telephone, they're all Africanized, right? Okay. Well, the reason I say that is because, do you trust a swarm of bees? Like when I was growing up, we never put a suit or veil or nothing on, didn't even bother to smoke. We just walked up to the swarm, shook them into a box, and went on. Can't always do that, because Africanized bees, when they're in a swarm, will attack. European bees that have been sprayed diesel fuel, WD-40, Clorox, bug bombs, smoke bombs, flares, all this kind of stuff, will make a hive, make a swarm that could have been a hive. By the way, if a pest control company comes in, sprays them, doesn't kill them, the bees abscond, they may or may not have a queen. So they're hanging there, they're pissed off. They're mad right now. So you go up there, the happy beekeeper, going to collect this nice bunch of bees, walk up to the branch, they explode all over the place. We were actually in the parking lot of a plastic surgeon, and he called us up, said, hey, we got this swarm of bees outside our door. We need you to go get them out of here right now. We pulled up. I'm like, just a little swarm. I'll be done in 2 minutes and out of here.
You asked me to go get a queen cage. We both walked up.
Yeah. She went back to get the queen cage. Meanwhile, the bees decided that I was the nearest target, and yeah, they were covering my phone. Looked like a pile of bees. Why? Rubber, black, and they were stinging it. I set it on the hood of my truck, and they were just pelting it. Oh, they were calling something, let me tell you. So she ended up throwing the veil out to me so I could finish up and get things taken care of while she's sitting inside. Yeah, basically. So, and basically this is what they look like. Now, a lot of times we'll go out and your bees in your hives that are healthy are nice and fuzzy and, you know, good-looking bees. They even kind of have a dusty look to them sometimes. Most of these bees we're finding look oily. Look like that bee that I showed you that have no hair on them. They don't look very good. They're not very happy. Yeah, they look greasy, oily. The other thing to kind of listen to, you can tell by the sound they make how hot they're going to be. If you ever get a chance to listen, I actually have a video of it, but the sound of an Africanized colony is really high-pitched. She may have it on there, we can listen to it.
And before you shake that swarm, make sure there's no comb in there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, show them the open air. This is some of the fun ones that we get. Open air hives. Everybody's seen those? Okay. I have an open air hive right now that is probably from here to the ground, and I cannot reach around it. Okay? And it's all comb. How do I know it's all comb? Because it's growing off from grapevines. That's what's actually supporting the hive. Grapevines, okay? That's a big bunch of bees. And they've been in this property for at least the last 7 to 8 years on the same location. Now they've swarmed who knows how many, maybe 100 times or more off from that one hive. But we'll see if you watch my website, you'll probably see it on there. And, wait a second, I'm still a little grayed there. I don't know. Oh my goodness, that hasn't been that long, about 5 years. This was this the one that the newspaper took? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing. Media loves this kind of stuff. And you have to be very careful of what you say or don't say, or how you say it and what route, because they will take your sentence, chop it, splice it, and add it to something that you weren't even talking about. It's happened many times.
They've got him and they just want his footage and they'll just edit over him talking, so they're just using his body and face and hands.
Right.
And they'll talk right over.
That's a collective brain. It's not an individual. It's a collective brain. So if they're foraging, you need to know what they're foraging, which direction they're flying. If they're been sprayed, by putting my hand up there, you'll actually sometimes all stand up and fan at you. Sometimes they'll stand up and kind of wave at you. It's really neat. And every little thing they do tells you something different about what that hive is doing.
Sometimes they jump off at you.
Sometimes, not very often. What I was doing here, I put my hand up there to see exactly what they were going to do. And I was also showing the reporters that, hey, these bees are not aggressive, because I can put my hand there. The bees actually crawled down onto my hand, held my hand down to show them that they're not trying to sting me. Now, the reason was, this hive here, everybody says they're Africanized. They were going to sting the kids in the block. They were going to sting the people's neighborhood, the pets and all. And they wanted them gone. So the city actually called me out to take these away. What's that? No, these are just regular honeybees. They have honey on them. There's another picture, the next one.
Oh no. That is,
This is just to prove to you guys, I'm not the only one that does this.
that is actually the hive that he was just doing. You couldn't
Yeah,
see how
you couldn't
big it
see the
was.
whole hive.
It's actually that big.
All right?
Just being stupid with a knife. Please don't.
Yeah, she's just playing around. Flip back. Anyways, so that picture you saw there, the newspaper actually sold that picture. I never seen a dime of it, by the way. And by the way, anytime you do any of these TV shows, any of this media out stuff, you will never get paid for. National Geographic will not pay you for any of your information that you put out, any time you put into it. It's all donated by you. All right? So,
Well, you spent a great deal of your time trying to disprove.
Right.
What the pest
I do.
control companies will try to hype up and.
right. I try and educate the public as to our industry, you know, the good aspects of it. Because we don't necessarily want to see this every day, where they decided, oh, we can do it ourselves with a coffee can full of rags and light them on fire and smoke the bees out. Well, by the way, you see where the bees are, right? They were inside the tree. Now they're way up here. And just like out there, I just walked over, picked up the queen, put her in a cage, put her in the box. They all walked right in the box, picked it up and walked away. I was there maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops from the time I pulled up to the time I left.
And they caught all
Now,
of that on fire.
this burned from here across 3 other properties. Okay? I was called in by the fire department because the bees were all over the place at the time. The local kids in the neighborhood ran up, grabbed all the brood and honey and everything, took all that away. So there was no brood, no honey left, just the bees. So real easy removal for me. So this is where they become fun, okay? You get into a hive like this. This is several years old, okay? When you're looking at a hive, this hive here has several different processions of hives. This is the newer one. This one over here is actually the older one. You can see where it's broken off there and fallen. There's a whole bunch down here on the bottom because it got too hot, fell down. Then the beetles move up. The wax moths move in and eat it. They just move over and start building again. This was actually in a vacant, foreclosed-on home.
And a big portion of that is actually fallen. It was.
Yeah.
Is that a, there's storm shutters up or plywood up or something?
Yeah, they put plywood up over them. The city does to keep vandals from going in the houses.
How do you even start to look for a queen?
You don't see her? Let me tell you, the first thing when you're looking at these balls of bees, hives like this, the queen's going to jump right out at you, literally. She's going to be the first thing you see. You have to train your eye to look for movement and differences. It's a hunter's eye is the best thing I can put it to. You're looking through a whole crowd. Say there's 1,000 people here and I'm looking for one person that I saw a picture of yesterday. And you got to pick out that one person. It's just one thing that's different about them that picks them out from everybody else. The queen looks more like a wasp. So you're looking for that wasp shape instead of the bee shape. That's the easiest way.
Where she would typically be.
Right.
So.
You're using that, but you're also using, the bees are talking to you. They're actually talking to themselves, but you're listening in. They're over here saying, oh, the queen's over here, guys. We need to move this way because the bear's in our house tearing it apart to eat us. Which is probably what they're thinking because that's the natural tendency of the hive. So, meanwhile, they're moving over here. The queen normally is going to be in the center and they're going to just kind of get out of her way and walk out of the way and she's going to go wherever she wants. You're looking at the brood first, the newest, youngest brood, because she's going to be actively laying. You're not looking in the old brood. Could care less about the honey. The honey doesn't matter. It's the honey actually to me is it's kind of a frustration. It gets in my way. I don't like the slimy, sticky, I don't like gooey. All right. Honey's in my way. I'd rather just go through the brood. So, or crawling on the back of the guy that you're trying to show where the queen is and you spent 2 hours looking for the queen and you get up and you're scratching your head and you look at his back and here's a ball of bees like this hanging on his shoulders. He doesn't even know there's any bees on him. And right there's the queen on the top. Happens. So, cherry pickers. Let me tell you, accordion shutters, they love them. Perfect cavity there. Keeps them nice and cool inside. That's what they say. Don't bees have to stay 95 degrees? So, actually wear suits on that one because, yeah, they've tried to spray them from the inside, and they had somebody from the outside that tried to spray them. So when I got there, and by the way, what do you do with that suit? You got chemicals all over it now? You're going to go back to your bee yard and open one of your hives? Now you're cross-contaminating your hives? So, okay, the canvas pulled over the top. I actually did this one a month before this. That's 1 month's worth of work for them. It's amazing, isn't it? They can build that fast. Notice it's all bright white. This is almost all honey. Really good flow of mangrove honey coming on in that time, going into Brazilian pepper, right, and Cape Coral. So they have all kinds of stuff coming in, huge swarm when it first lands. So they're all primed and pumped up, ready to build a big hive. Perfect place. I'd cut it out, pull the tarp back over for them because that's what the homeowner wanted. Told them this would probably happen again. They said, oh, don't worry about it. If it happens, we'll get them again. A month later, they come back from Canada. You sure you took the bees out? I got the pictures to prove it.
You need to touch on that, actually.
Yeah, pictures, pictures, pictures. How many is on my phone?
Oh my gosh.
9,000 something on my phone right now this year.
All the time.
When you drive up, take a picture. When you open the hive, take a picture. Take a picture of your vehicle at the house with the address number of the house. Because, they'll say, oh, well, that wasn't my house. Even though they gave you that address and you went to that property. And then they don't want to pay you for it. After you spend 2 days working on them. So pictures, pictures, pictures.
And when with the bees gone?
Yeah. When you're totally finished, you pick up your hive, you're back in the truck, everything's ready to go. Last thing, go back and take a picture, make sure that nothing is left, not one single bee. Because if there's one bee, they're going to call you up the next day or two and say, hey, you didn't remove the bees, come back. So if you don't want to make another trip, for me, I may be going 50, 60 miles down to that place. Is it worth going back for that one bee? Trap outs can take anywhere from a week to 2 months.
I think we honestly lose money on those.
Yeah,
We just-
it's trap outs. You really, the amount of times that I go back and forth to them, I charge $300 on a trap out. Let me tell you, that's nowhere near enough.
breaks us even maybe
Yeah.
sometimes.
So, manufactured homes, one of my favorite jobs. Okay,
One of his students.
this is one of my students that no longer is with us, but
He's not dead.
I was waiting for that. Anyways, no, he was a good kid. He worked really well for us. Actually came here when we had the program here a few years back. This is a bunch of bees that was underneath there. See the insulation?
That's an office trailer.
Yes, this is an office. We get them in school mobiles, mobile homes. I got one to do when I get home. Very common, normally, right where you see that pipe or in the wheel well, where they can get through that underpinning. They get up in there. Super simple job. Unless they've been there 5, 6, 10, 12 years, and they've been sprayed 25, 30 times, and they've tried to burn them out. By the way, they do try and burn them out. I don't know where the people's brains are at that point, but I went to a job. Yeah, I went to a job, and the fire department called me up. They said, I need expedite you there, which basically means run red lights, stoplights, whatever you got to do, get there right now, because they're trying to put out a fire, and their guys can't get into work because all the bees everywhere. I get there, the guy had taken this pile of rags, soaked them in oil, lit them on fire, slid them underneath his trailer to smoke the bees out to chase the bees away. Well, there's a crawl space like this from the ground to his trailer. How far do the flames from this pile of rags like this go? Well, when I got there, there wasn't a trailer there. There was pieces of a metal frame and some metal roofing, and that was about it. The hive of bees was hanging on a tree about 30 feet over. It worked. It didn't have a house anymore. But I walked over and literally, I was there, dropped the bees into a box, grabbed the queen, put her in a cage, set her down. 5 minutes later, after the fire department finally got done with it, because they all wanted to come up and see what was going on with them, picked up the box, set it in my truck, and I was gone. Meanwhile, the guy that just burned his house to the ground standing over in the corner with the sheriff's department now because he started a fire that didn't just burn his house trailer, but burned the neighbor's property and barn. So, yeah, that's not situations you ever want to be involved in. Attics, very common. I crawl in some of these attics and it can be 200 degrees in there, sometimes more. And you touch that wax, what temperature does wax melt at? Like 150, 155, 160. Okay, it liquefies. You touch that with your hand, it liquefies and runs down your arm. Now you have boiling hot wax running down your arm, running down into the insulation, into the drywall down below. What a problem. Notice all the dead bees. Pest control, homeowner or somebody spraying chemicals. There was 8 bug bombs in the attic. Hadn't taken care of them. Down on the ground, there was at least 15 cans of wasp and hornet spray. A bottle of 7 dust on the ground. And they'd also had pest control there that I don't know what they put on them. I actually saved those bees. Crawled in the attic, slid a board up underneath them, and cut them down at night 1 sheet at a time when it was cooler. You can't do those in the midday when it's 200 degrees in that attic.
How do you know those bees are okay as far as you eating their honey?
Bingo. Best, I've been waiting for this question all night.
What's the question?
Question is that honey okay to eat?
No, the bees themselves.
For the bees or for you? Okay? Al, what was in that comb a little while ago? Do you want to eat fiberglass? Do you want your customer to eat fiberglass? How about roach droppings? Rat droppings? Oh, they're tasty, right? Kind of, yeah.
Smart pills.
Just out of curiosity, what do you do with a hive like that? Do you save it or what?
Yeah, actually I do. What I do is I'll take the bees off from here. Now, granted, I'll lose probably half of those bees in the process because they are already so stressed out. I mean, just from all the chemicals that are in there, and then the fact that I'm tearing them apart, and I don't give them back any of that wax. None of that honey goes back to the bees. All that stuff is destroyed. Okay, all that chemical, I don't know what it's going to do. So I don't want it in my hives. So all that stuff goes in a garbage bag to the incinerator. Or we melt it down. So,
You don't send it to the landfill so the bag can break open and kill more bees?
you heard it. It does happen.
Well, aren't the bees also contaminated?
Right.
Yeah, they are. They are contaminated. And that's something you have to watch because these bees, when we put them in a box, I have actually a different yard that we put them at. I won't put them in the yard where they're going to go out and do pollination because those bees are so stressed out already. I set them at a yard that I can watch them because who knows what chemical they actually have. Some of those chemicals they get into their body and they start weakening them. Some of them will mess with the queen and they'll say something's wrong with the queen, kick her out, kill her, then you're queenless, and then they go to a laying worker. Sometimes they'll go in there and they'll shake on the hive. They can't fly, they'll just sit there and shake. Sometimes they'll crawl out of the hive while you're working on them and they'll be crawling on the ground just shaking, twitching. Well, hey, I've done it. I've crawled out of some of these places And I've been sick from the stuff that they put in them. So it's another thing you want to think about.
You got loads
You know,
in the attic full of dust and you don't know what that dust is. It's white powder everywhere.
Right.
yeah,
I see white powder, get away.
yeah. Most of it is permethrins and what they call delta dust, which is finely ground glass. So yeah, fiberglass is bad enough.
Do you ever go in, like, in that situation, you ever go into drywall ceiling? Drop the ceiling and pull it out?
I do, but rarely,
Any particular reason?
because I'm doing more damage that way. And this one here was real easy. I could just lay a sheet of plywood in there, crawl right up to it, slide up underneath it, cut them out.
That's blown-in insulation.
Exactly. Sometimes you're right, because what if you have an attic that's only this tall? I'm not going to fit. Yeah, or they got crisscross boards that don't even make any sense for a roof truss. I've even had to bust open a roof and actually take the tiles, the roof sheeting, everything apart to get into the bees. It's the only way to get to them.
I had one the other day, I went to drywall ceiling, and you know how you put the dormers on there in that dormer pocket?
Right.
You had to actually cut a piece of plywood out to get in the dormer, to pull out the comb and bees.
Yep. It happens.
It's a less
Bees,
expensive way than ripping the roof off.
sometimes, if you can do that. I cut a lot of drywall. Let me tell you, drywall is a simple fix. Most of the time, you can fix it for less than 20 bucks. So,
Keith, you alluded to the fact that you have different bee yards.
right.
How do you monitor each hive? Do you have a system for, okay, this one came from here,
You have to.
what do you do? How do you do it?
Here's the issue. You have bees that you suspect that are full of veromite. You don't want to mix those in with the rest of your bees. So you have a yard that is basically a parasite yard.
Sorry, I'm moving the whole thing. I'm dying. My battery. I'm trying
Oh, okay.
to adjust me. Sorry.
So basically,
I got it.
you have different yards for different things. One that you're dealing with only stuff that you come back with that you know, that not suspect, but you know has had some kind of parasite, pesticide load damage with. And then you have another place that you take all that comb and debris, because it's not just bee stuff. You're taking pieces of board, drywall, concrete, asbestos, you name it. You end up taking this stuff out of people's houses. You got to have some for all that stuff to go. I do everything I can to stay out of a place with asbestos. Okay? For one, you're going to have hazmat all over it. And they're not fun to work with. I don't care what you do, they're not fun to work with. I've only had 2 instances where I had to deal with that. They had a hazardous cleanup crew there on site dealing with it. I just dealt with the bees and gave them suits to use, and then they ended up buying all the suits from me. So,
I'm sorry to ask you another question, but
that's okay.
I'm new at it, but I was just wondering, like, if you were totally ignorant on, chemicals and stuff, and you grabbed that hive out of there and you brought it back to your house with the honey, you know, and how could you tell that the honey's poison? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You always, here's the best rule of thumb. If you take any honey, any bee products from somebody else's house, tree, yard, water meter, expect it to have some kind of chemical. Because I'll guarantee you, and in the last 5 years, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. Everybody throws.
As long as you're taking care of it, can you assume that your honey's okay, or how, what do you?
If you're doing it for yourself, that's your own prerogative. But if you're out here going to somebody else's place and removing it and bringing it back, assume that it has some kind of chemical, something in it. You know, it's just safe to assume that.
I'm kind of swirling back
Okay.
to the earlier part of your talk, when you were talking about the importance of having a contract. Do you have to have it in there that you will be taking the bees with you? Is that a touchy?
You should, because legally, you have to take the bees. If you're doing it, you have to take the bees with you back to your yard in a bee box to a bee yard.
Except when they don't pay you and that breaks the contract.
Yeah, yeah.
Dump the bees out on the front lawn.
I have been known to do that. Let me tell you, I have nothing against attorneys, but some of them just do not like to pay. And I had an attorney that didn't pay me, and I left the box there. And I told the wife, I said, when you all decide to pay, I'll take the bees. Because this was not the first incident at their house. This was the third time I was there and didn't get paid. The third time I left it at his front door. And it stayed there for about 2 weeks. And then I got this desperate call from his wife and some other lady screaming in the background to come get him, that the cash was sitting at the front door. So sometimes you have to resort to that. You know, it just works.
But if they didn't
Okay.
pay, there was no contract.
Yeah.
So
So, you know, sometimes, but most of the time, I'll tell you, most of the time, people that want to save the bees are right there for you. I mean, they're going to bend over backwards to help you out getting it done. So,
When you have the bees out in the field, you get all the bees, you're gonna have some left. What do you do?
well, you're leaving the box until night. All the foragers are back. They've all moved out of wherever they were. They're in your hive with the queen. Then you just pick it up, put it in your truck, and go. So there's no bees.
And then you work all night, and then you go and do it the next day.
And if you want to stay married, you have to work with them or you don't see them at all. That's
Okay.
What about the African ones that are working at night?
Well, generally you don't have that many, but it does happen. But like Al was saying, you work all day and then sometimes you work all night. I've been known, and she can back me up on this, I'll leave at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and get home at 5 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, sometimes you will work all day, all night. So, open air soffit hives. Yeah.
How much do you get paid for what you do?
Never enough. Let me tell you, never enough. Because for one, if you look at my hands, I'm covered in little black spots from stingers, little blood blisters from stingers. It's something you just have to love, because if you don't, this is definitely not what you need to be doing, because the money is not going to be there. You have to fight every day to get your money.
And we diversify our
Yeah.
income from bees a million different ways to make a decent living off of it. I mean, that's the
Yep.
reality.
But yeah, we do everything there is to do with bees,
We
everything in it.
pollinate, we sell honey, we do candles, I mean, I don't know, go on.
We do everything.
Everything that has to do
Yep.
with bees.
How many employees do you have?
You're looking at us. Okay?
And we run about
Yeah.
1,000 hives, so it's a lot. We get a guy
It's a lot of work.
occasionally, sometimes, and maybe a friend of ours, and that's when we're-
Volunteers. Let me tell you, volunteers, great people. Sometimes they get in your way, but it's worth it. Also, somebody that wants you to teach them beekeeping, most of the time it's worth it. Not all of the time. Some of them become,
Well, sometimes they
Yeah.
are just doing it to take over your business contacts. We've had that happen more than once.
yeah. So, your question?
When you spray these beehives and you're throwing away the comb because you think it's contaminated, are those bees still viable? Can they be viable and produce then?
Let me tell you,
honey
a
and
hive,
honey
a hive that has had chemicals in it, like that one there, I can spend a year getting that hive back together before it'll even produce a super honey, if it ever produces a super honey.
So anytime these bees are sprayed, that's basically it for the bees.
You might as well say, if they've been spraying them,
Yeah.
they're done. Because, yeah, it's almost a waste of time. Because I'm all the time looking for hygienic bees, looking for that genetic breakthrough that's going to save us from the varroa mites, least hive beetles, all this other stuff that will that will survive all these other chemicals that we want to throw at them. You know, because there's a bee out there somewhere that's going to do it. And as my great granddad said, that bee that you saved someday might make you $1 million. Well, that's back when $1 million was worth a whole lot. But
You still haven't told me how you keep them straight. What
It's all up here.
No way. You're a brilliant man, but no one said.
Let me tell you.
How do you do it?
Okay. For instance, I have one yard that's actually a quarry. Inside the quarry, they're no longer quarrying there. Now it's a recycle facility. They bring concrete in. There's an area that's completely surrounded by water. I put all my hot bees there. Now somehow I remember that in the back of my head. Hot location, nice bees, because the alligator likes to come up behind you while you're working the bees and sneak up to you. It's a big one. She's about, 12, 13, I don't know. Big gator. Okay, so I remember that. I have another place that I put bees that have been sprayed, whatever, ran over, thrown out of somebody's car on the interstate, all that kind of stuff. That yard is a different place next to my shop. Now those bees I work up to be into the actual equipment on pallets to go out to do pollination. So now the ones that got sprayed go in another spot on the same property. All of that comb is all new. All that sprayed stuff, everything that was in there is all thrown away. That's all gone. So none of that is there. But now a third of those bees are going to die from whatever stress and all anyways. So the bees will actually clean themselves. They will sacrifice themselves as well. When you're looking at this, bees will actually stand up and fan the pesticide away from their queen and away from the brood. Now, you'll come in sometimes and you'll get into a hive, kind of like one of these, and you get in there and there's no honey. There's just little spots of brand new nectar they're bringing in, no larvae, only capped larvae, and no queen cells. But there's a queen walking around on it. What happened? What happened?
She got sterile from all the chemicals?
No. Somebody tried to spray them. The bees realized that their hive's contaminated. They didn't leave, so they actually go in and they clean everything out and throw it all out. And when you're walking up to it, you'll notice on the ground that there's little larvae thrown all over the ground. They'll actually do that. Time. This is also considered an open air hive. Doing these, you got to be real careful, because when that swarm first landed there, they thought or did go inside that soffit. So when you're looking at it, don't think that they're just on the outside. This one here actually was on the inside and in the wall. And by the way, your question back there, what is this? Happens all the time. Okay?
This is off topic completely, but would you happen to know if in Florida, if you can get an agricultural exemption from having a bee yard?
Business meeting.
Yeah. Can we touch on that in a few minutes here?
Or even after,
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
a lot to say about
We got a lot to say
that.
about that. That's a whole new issue that's coming up in Florida that's going to be going through Tallahassee. So, next.
Tell her you talked about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. It's a very good point. This here, notice the white. When we were talking about the white powder, see all the white powder on everything? But you see the bees? Okay, they actually pushed themselves further way back. Pest control company dusted them. They went in, they cut everything out, said, oh, we're done. Bees are smarter than we are. Okay?
These are unusual.
These are unusual locations. Anybody recognize this? Okay, at the airport. Okay, we get into those. There's actually a motor there. They get into the arm. It's unbelievable how many bees like to fly on planes. The last one I was hanging, I think it was JetBlue. I was actually on the windshield like this. The pilots are in there taking pictures of me, holding onto the windshield, scraping the bees off from the nose cone into a box. It's a lot of fun.
I think I have I'm trying to find that picture to put it in here.
So, couches. Kids love to make little forts out in the woods. I did it when I was a kid. Well, they love couches, they love forts, traffic cones. car tires. I get a lot of car tires. This one here was actually pretty neat. CNN did a story. Exactly. CNN did a story not too long ago about making beehives out of Chester drawers, old used furniture and stuff. There you go. They did it before CNN. So I do all of them for CenturyLink over in our area. I wish I could do the whole state because those are so much fun to deal with, digging through all those little wires that you can't pop 2 wires apart because then you shut off who knows how many businesses. Luckily, my dad worked for the telephone company, and when I was a little kid, I got to play with those wires, so I know how to put them back together. Right. So this was actually across the street from the entrance to an elementary school. Somebody had taken a motor out of a boat, put it on this trailer, pushed it back up into the palmettos, and the city was building new sidewalks. So as you can see in the back there, they were digging the ground for the sidewalks. The bees exploded on them. When the guy backed the backhoe in and found the thing, you can see where he crushed it here when he hit it. They exploded, went all over the place. Guess when? Right when school was letting out. So, of course, 911, get out here right now. Can you be here 10 minutes ago? And I'm on the other side of the county. So when I got there, they've mostly calmed back down. They've got the kids going out the other side of the school. The fire department's there blocking off 3 streets. And you see where they were inside the engine block. So they will literally, I had them inside a block of a tractor that had been left out in the woods for who knows how many years. And they wanted to save the tractor because they wanted to rebuild it. How do you get the bees out of the inside of an engine block and the transfer casing, and you can't get your hand in there to get the comb out? It was a lot of fun. Owls, they'll build on pretty much anything. People and gas and bees, they don't mix. I had a water meter not too long ago that the lawn service decided to pour the gasoline into the water meter because the bees were in there. Well, I'd been called on it already by the city, and I was on the way out there, and I was there less than 5 minutes after the guys did this. I lit the smoker, which is always lit on the back of my truck. I walked over to it, a little bit of heat or spark or something, kaboom. Let me tell you, it blows all the skin, burns all the hair right off from you. So, yeah, it's fun. This guy here actually decided that he could do the removal himself. I'd been out on that dock a week before and took a big hive out of a boat. The guy saw what I did with the smoker, said, oh, I can do that. So he lit a can again with some rags, got onto the back of the boat. Well, when he did, he didn't realize that they had a leak in the gas into the bilge, ignited the fumes, and blew him out of the back here across the dock into the water. And what's that? Well, probably.
That's the bees.
That was actually the bees. So that boat now is a tugboat out in the bay. So it's been completely gutted. The whole top of the boat's been cut off. New been on top, and a huge diesel engine in there. So doesn't look anything like it. So yeah, gas and bees don't mix, just like any other chemicals and bees just don't mix. Oh my, I'm getting the look. Okay, here you go, tires. Think about this, when you're driving, how much thickness on that sidewall? You can take a razor knife and slice the sidewall right out of a tire, the whole thing will pop right out. One nice piece, really nice donut of comb. You just pull it out in one piece, shake them off, there's your bees. Instead of trying to cut the sidewall and everything else and burn them and who knows what. Regular old razor blade will do it. So anything in the diameter of a pencil, the bees can move into. And by the way, when you guys come back around, when we came in, she calls it my bee eyes. everywhere I go, I see bees. So on the way here, of course, I see bees. We pull up to the intersection up here, and on the concrete poles, if you get to go by, look up, and you'll see the hives. So that tells you bees are everywhere. At one point in South America, one of the cities had 300 hives per square mile. Florida probably is that right now, between all of us and the wild hives. So expect, if you're doing this kind of work, that you will be bit by black widows of every kind, rattlesnakes,
I look before I grab things, that's where, I'm sorry.
scorpions. I've been bit or stung many times by scorpions. It really is not much worse than a honeybee sting. Okay? Snakes. They like to live under the pallets of our boxes because it keeps them warm. So you get bit on the foot. So,
And he's diabetic, it's not a good thing.
yeah. Anyways, heat stroke, remember that? Carry lots of water. This is Florida. Have fun, be careful. Couple last questions.
Africanized bees, are there full-bred colonies yet here in Florida? Or they're pretty much hybridized?
Well, Africanized bees are hybridized. There are no full African bees. Okay? Saying that, the state says anything south of I-4 is Africanized. I don't buy it, because if they were, I wouldn't be doing what I do every day with no veil, no smoker, and t-shirts like this. So, but there again, they are here, so you got to keep in the back of your head. Any other questions?
Is there anything you can do, when you finish the removal, I'm sure you clean everything up, but is there anything you can do to prevent them coming back?
Seal the area. Fill the cavity, seal the area. Now your question, last,
Paint it if you can.
yeah, paint over the area. That'll seal in some of the pheromones. But seal it up, and don't use expanding foam, use something like liquid nail to seal it. Most other sealants don't work very well. Your question again. Okay, right now, the state of Florida, you can get ag assessment for property for your bees. Saying that, every single county in the state is independent. They can determine whether or not they want to do it, whether they can use the square foot of your bee box or 5 boxes per acre using the state statutes for your bee guidelines. Or they can say, no, we're just not going to accept bees as an agricultural entity, even though the state of Florida states that bees are livestock, that beekeeping is a department of agriculture, and we are farming, okay? The property appraiser can say, no, we're not going to accept you, even though your box of bees is the equivalent of a cow.
What if your town says, but they leave your property?
Palm Beach County used to be 50 hives per acre.
No, it's 25.
Okay?
We got them to reduce it.
But see the problem? Every single county, every single municipality can change that according to what they want.
Broward County will look at and assess per situation.
Right.
How many.
Well, let me tell you the situation we're going through right now. Actually, Monday, I was with our property appraisers, our ag department of property appraisers, because I have a 40-acre parcel. I had 120 boxes on this 40-acre parcel. That's not enough bees on 40 acres. 120 boxes. Well, wait a second. Now, not just putting bees on the property is enough. Now I have to go in and plant the whole property in wildflowers. And by the way, if you plant wildflowers, do they come up right then and produce? Well, they expect it to. You plant it, they come up, they produce your crop. You're gonna reap the nectar from the wildflowers you planted, right? Convince a property appraiser of that. That's what they're telling me right now.
Probably gonna have some lawsuits we're gonna have to.
It's to the point now where when I was president of the state association, we had little rumblings of this. We had meetings. We represented the beekeepers in this instance because the beekeepers really should be treated just like any other department that farms. We are farmers, and they don't accept that. So we fought with it then, and we were getting to that point, and I stepped out as president, and that's where it ended. So,
Well, we actually thought that, we were going to have,
right. We, in Lee County where we are, actually, we had thought at that point that everything was settled because I was an advisor to the same guys that are telling me now that I need to plant wildflowers on the property to get it. And they've actually denied it. I planted buckwheat, I planted wildflower seed. They denied the property.
we were paid
So-
consultants for Lee County to advise them for bees, and because we disagreed with them on a property, they're no longer using us, and now we have to prove on everything we do, pictures,
Every receipt, every expenditure for our business, I have to send them a copy of. So when you're talking about getting an assessment for property, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. And pictures,
done though.
every single time I go to one of our leases where my bee yards are, I take a picture when I come up to the property. I take a picture of the bees, what I'm doing. I notate it. I mean, it is a mess to deal with for them. Is it worth it? At this point. So eventually, all of us beekeepers are going to have to get together with the state, and the state is going to have a preemptive law that supersedes all these towns and municipalities as far as what they can tell us what the assessment on that property.
Yeah, the
So-
main thing is that you gotta have more than an acre of property. You gotta have an acre of property.
Right.
House and an acre or more to be,
Right. Anything, the first acre with your house, that's standard across the board. Anything over that should be assessed accordingly. And that's what they can't figure out.
there's downfalls
So,
to that because you can get your exemption. And then what happens is, say you wanna do bees 5 years later, then your tax exemption goes back up to where the market value is at that time rather than being locked in at the lower rate if you've had the property for 25 years.
right. And see,
You can lose,
exactly.
you can lose things. So you
Yeah.
have to make sure it's something you wanna do and you're gonna continue to do. Palm Beach County is 25 years, or 25 hives per acre. They used to be 50. And we're actually, I talked with Diane, the minimum she would go down to is probably like 15. But
But
they wanna have, like how everything has a spreadsheet of what they're growing, when they're growing, how much they're getting, so on and so forth. And if we can provide that for them, then they have something to work off of. Because when I
Right.
told them it was 50, when I first started trying to get it brought down, I told them, it's like, if you're a regular beekeeper, you got an acre, you gotta have 50 hives on there, you have to feed the bees. They cannot survive and produce honey at 50 hives per acre, it's impossible.
well,
You have to think that all of those property appraisers really, we've not encountered one that knew anything about bees. It
Yeah,
is
they're
all-
accountants.
Yes,
Right.
and if they have an ag background, if it's cattle or something, and they have no idea, and it is just a losing battle every time. It's been
So-
very.
right.
Petition? I mean, can we start a petition to do this?
Well, that's really where the state association should step in.
Petitions really do a lot. I mean,
Well,
if everybody.
we get,
1 minute, we're gonna take a couple more questions, but if you want to buy tickets for the raffle, do it now. We have a solar wax melter, some plants, smoker, really nice
Miracle
solar
berry.
wax melter. Huh?
2 miracle berries,
Two miracle
miracle berries.
plants,
No,
so,
2 miracle berries.
2 miracle berries.
the berry themselves. Well, it's the berry. You eat them. Okay? Oh. I have to decline